Welcome to the public statement hearing for case number 21-E-0425, Champlain Hudson Power Express, Section 68. Please note all attendees' lines are muted upon entry. The hearing will begin at 1 p.m. If you are experiencing technical difficulties logging in or hearing any audio, please call 1-800-342-3330. Thank you.
Mr. McLean, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, we're on the record. I call case 21-E-0425, petition of CHPE LLC and CHPE Properties, Inc., collectively CHPE, for an order granting certificate of public convenience and necessity. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Clark. I'm an administrative law judge with the New York State Department of Public Service. Assisting me today are Sangeetha Kailas and Joe White from the Department's Office of Consumer Services. We're here for a public statement hearing being held on behalf of the New York State Public Service Commission, which consists of 7 members. Chair Rory Christian and Commissioners Diane Berman, James Alisi, Tracy Edwards, John Howard, David Valesky, and John Majori. It was my understanding that Commissioner Majori was going to join us today. I don't see that he has. Perhaps he's experiencing technical difficulties, but Commissioner Majori, if you are a call-in user and wanted to make a statement, please let us know by raising your hand, *3. I'll give you a second. Okay, again, it appears that Commissioner Majori is having some technical difficulties, so I'm going to move right along. I'm going to provide a little background of the case and then briefly go over today's process. By order dated April 18, 2013, the Commission granted a Certificate of Environmental Compatibility and Public Need pursuant to Public Service Law Article 7 to CHPE to construct, own, and operate the Champlain Hudson Power Express project, a high-voltage, direct current transmission line extending approximately 339 miles from the international border with Canada to a converter station in Astoria, Queens. In doing so, the Commission determined that the project would serve the public interest, convenience, and necessity. Prior to beginning construction on the project, CHPE must obtain a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, or CPCN, pursuant to Public Service Law Section 68, which would ensure that CHPE is properly registered to do business in New York State, that it has received the consent of appropriate municipalities to proceed with the project, and that it is financially capable of doing so. Accordingly, on August 3rd, 2021, CHPE filed a petition requesting that the Commission issue an order granting a CPCN pursuant to Public Service Law Section 68. This public statement hearing is being held to receive public comment on whether the Commission should grant such a certificate. A notice regarding the hearing was issued on January 28, 2022. As this is not an opportunity for parties to relitigate issues already decided by the Commission in the Article 7 proceeding, comments should pertain to CHPE's ability and readiness to commence construction of the project as contemplated by Public Service Law, Section 68. This is not the only opportunity for comment. If you did not pre-register to speak, you can submit comments via the department's website, by email, by regular mail, or by telephone. All comments will be given equal consideration regardless of how they are submitted. Turning back to today, this is not an evidentiary hearing or a question and answer session, but instead an opportunity for the public to offer their comments on the Public Service Law Section 68 petition filed by CHPE on August 3rd. Any statements made here will become part of the administrative record. We have a court reporter on the line who will prepare a transcript of the hearing, which will be publicly available on the Department of Public Service website. We have 19 people registered to speak. I don't intend to impose a time limit, but I do request that you provide your statement in a reasonable amount of time and avoid repeating yourself. When we call your name, we will unmute your line and notify you that you've been unmuted. Please remember that if you've put your own line on mute, you will also have to unmute your end before you begin to speak. Please state your name and speak slowly and clearly so that the court reporter can accurately record your statement for the record. If you are speaking on behalf of an organization, please also provide that name. All right, we're all set to begin. Our first speaker today is Daniel Ward. Mr. Ward?
Good afternoon.
You've been unmuted. Please provide your statement.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Ward. I appreciate the time to speak this afternoon at the hearing. I represent the Hudson Falls Central School District. I'm on to make a statement based on all the input that's been given to our school district on this project. Our school district in town and village here at Hudson Falls have all had plenty of information provided on the CHPE project, and we've taken it to our constituencies and representative groups and boards. Our board did pass a resolution to approve moving forward with this project. There are a lot of benefits to our school district from this project. We've been transparent about those, again, with our boards and constituent members through our public meetings. So I just want to speak very briefly about the opportunity this provides for our school district and the school children and employees of our district, as well as the residents, immediate once the project is done being constructed, as well as the long term. So immediately it provides us with some talking points for our taxpayers and constituents, understanding how the funding will stream to the school districts and our local municipalities when the project is operational. It also lets us talk about planning for enhancing the opportunities for school children for the next 30 years here in the Hudson Falls Central School District, and similar conversations with my colleagues in other school districts. So this time, I guess the most important piece that I wanted to bring to light or reinforce is that it's been very transparent. Any information that we've asked for, I previously worked at a neighboring school district, Fort Edward. Any information I asked for prior to any hearings was provided to me. And since this has been formalized, all the information asked for has been provided in a very timely fashion, in a very concise manner, so that we could make an educated decision on supporting this project or not. And the Hudson Falls Central School District absolutely supports the project based on all the information that's been provided. And again, feel that the information was provided completely and very quickly, so we had plenty of time to deliberate on that decision. Thank you for the time to present today.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Our next speaker is Lisa Harrison.
Thank you.
Ms. Harrison, you've been unmuted.
Thank you. I'm not muted as far as I know.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Lisa Harrison. I live in Manhattan. Hydro-Quebec and Blackstone have not resolved critical open issues and therefore cannot be considered ready for construction. The CLCPA requires measurement of the emissions of a fuel over its full life cycle. Independent scientific studies have shown significant greenhouse gas emissions from Hydro-Quebec's megadams, some equivalent to or exceeding those of fossil fuel. Hydro-Quebec has shown zero evidence to support its no emissions claim. The capacity of the transmission line has increased from 1,000 megawatts to 1,250 megawatts, and aquatic routes have been changed. These changes require a new environmental impact study, which must evaluate the impacts of the increased capacity and must clearly delineate the route and address its impacts. Riverkeeper has identified serious issues regarding trenching and contamination of the Hudson River. 7 towns that rely on the river for their drinking water have raised concerns about the impact of dislodging toxins in the sediment. Blackstone has not resolved or even addressed any of these concerns. New York State should not allow a project to proceed that will severely damage New York waters and will endanger public health and safety. Blackstone has applied for IDA money, saying it needed the money in order to undertake this project. The petition for the certificate that is the subject of this hearing states that Blackstone, with $649 billion in assets, can provide all the equity necessary for the project. Both of these statements cannot be true. Will the PSC knowingly approve a fraudulent company to do a highly sensitive and critical project that will impact New York for many years to come? And I had a few procedural issues that I wanted to bring up also. I heard about this meeting 3 days ago. It would be nice if there was a better notification system because many people don't even know that it's happening. Due to work schedules, there should be at least 2 hearings, one during the day and one in the evening. I know several people who can't come today because of work schedules, so it would be really helpful to have an evening meeting as well. And CHPE is one project that has been dissected into 3 case numbers. This causes confusion about where to post comments and makes it difficult to find documents. Also, it's unclear which comments are considered and which are ignored. If I write a comment about something I feel strongly about, will it be ignored because the PSC is only looking at comments about one particular issue? If this is the case, the desired issue should be clearly delineated before the hearing. And if the PSC has such a narrow focus, it's inevitable that there will be critical issues that are never examined and are not considered in the decision-making process. This really must be remedied. All this makes it really difficult for the public to participate in the process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Our next speaker is Mr. Dave OBrien. Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
you've been unmuted.
Thank you. I appreciate the chance to talk. I have been aware of the CHP project for approximately 11 years now. I think through all the project points and working with them, they've been very transparent. They've been very open to suggestions and comments and input from individuals. This has been a very long process for them, one that is going to accumulate, hopefully, in bringing electricity to New York City and relieving the burden on the rest of the state. We also find that in working with them through their course in Washington County, which is mostly terrestrial, they have been very open to talking to people. They've met with people individually. They've talked with towns. They've talked with not governors, but county representatives, town representatives, village representatives, and representatives of many agencies, including Department of Public Service, Public Works, and going down through there. My community understands the CHP project, and for a very poor county in Washington County, which doesn't have a lot of industry, this will provide a much needed boost to the financial stability of schools, of towns, of villages, with the tax dollars it's going to bring into this. So I want to recommend that PSC allow this to go forward. There's going to be many more benefits coming, not only in the form of tax payments for decades more, but jobs and cleaner air for all New Yorkers. If we compare it to some of the other projects, when we talk about solar and wind tower, those have their own environmental issues. In terms of solar panels, it is even worse than anything else that come out there, because what are you going to do with those once they fail in 10, 14, 20, 30 years? Or more importantly, what happens if a project doesn't work and those panels are left there and not taken out? Many solar projects don't make provisions for taking those out or financial responsibilities to take those out when they're coming out. So I think that our community is one of 33 that have passed municipal consent resolutions authorizing installation of CHPE within municipal property, almost exclusively road. We strongly encourage you to approve the CPCN petition that is the subject of this hearing. So I want to thank you for allowing me to speak, but I think this is a very positive, straightforward, reliable company. We should all look forward to helping New York City and the rest of the state solve some of the issues in moving from fossil fuels to hydro, which is one of the safest safest sources of power. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. The next registered speaker registered as A. Wilson. I don't see an A. Wilson on the list, but I do see Daryl Wilson. Perhaps Mr. Daryl Wilson wants to give a statement next. If so, you've been unmuted, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. My name is Daryl Wilson. I'm the town supervisor for the town of Putnam, New York. It's going to be located on the south end of Lake Champlain and currently planned to be the point where the cable comes out of Lake Champlain and hits the terrestrial plan going south. Quickly, really to dovetail into what Mr. O'Brien was saying, it has a direct benefit to our community in the terms of creation of jobs on the short term, payment in lieu of taxes for many years to come, and direct contributions to the community in the form of other compensation. I'd also like to point out that this is one of the better clean energy alternatives that we have to deliver the energy to the needs of the people in New York City. So we are endorsing this project. I cannot speak to the CHP, as being properly registered or financially capable, but I can speak to the transparency of the communication that they've had with the town of Putnam over many years, and that we are encouraging you to approve this petition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Our next registered speaker is Jacqueline Dressler. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Jacqueline Dressler.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, I did want to say that there is an A. Wilson as well, and it seems that you may have bypassed her.
Okay, well, I'll certainly come back to her if I did.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so my name is Jackie Drexler. I'm glad to have this opportunity, Mr. Clark, and I'm speaking to the chair, Rory Christian. Hold on, we have echo. Okay. What can I do about the echo? Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi, Your Honor, this is Joe speaking. Ma'am, can you please turn off one of your devices? You're running two devices at the same time.
Oh, okay, I'll turn off this one. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The PSC must deny. No, we're still getting it. I turned this off. I don't understand what's going on. Just give me one moment.
Sure, take your time. Ms. Dressler, while you work out your audio problems, I think I'm going to go to Ms. A. Wilson. Thank you for pointing it out. We'll give Ms. Wilson a chance to talk and come back right to you. Thank you. If you could unmute A. Wilson, please.
Do you hear me? This is Annie Wilson calling.
Yes, we can.
Good. Good afternoon. And thank you for this opportunity to speak out, and I hope there'll be many more. So regarding this new docket for the CHPE LLC and their request through a petition, a verified petition that is dated August 3rd, 2021, according to the appropriate website for this proceeding, which is the 21-E-0425. I would like to request that the commission reject this petition and that CHPE LLC needs to at least revise it. Specifically, within this petition, there are numerous issues, but the most glaring inaccuracy is the reference to the New Scotland converter that was withdrawn by CHPE on November 5th under the docket 10-T-0139. So on page 12, and I'm reading word for word, in this regard, it should be noted that certificate holders have filed a petition with the Commission on case 10-T-0139 seeking approval to add an additional converter stationed in New Scotland, New York, which upon approval will transport renewable generation from upstate New York to the interconnection point. So would the Commission please review this detail and require that there be a new petition based on this glaring inaccuracy? As I said, this New Scotland converter station component was withdrawn from the seeking of approval on November 5th, 2021. The other issues in this verified petition are whether or not this is a merchant transmission line or not, or is it what they've called as there's a specific term, sorry. It's whether or not it is a gotta pause that. Is it a franchise? And there's back and forth within the text. A merchant transmission line should not be requesting funding, public funding, through the pilots and the IDAs. And a franchise would become another entity than what they've proposed to be. So could the Commission please require that this program, this project, be one or the other? They can't be both. So please review the language carefully. So in general, I wanted to add that the fact that this project has 3 case numbers, it's very confusing to the public. The original filing in 2010, the 10-T-0139, became part of a contract comment period for NYSERDA within the large-scale renewables Tier 4. That number was 15-E-0302. Comments were due February 7th. And now we have this third case number, 21-E-0425. And I don't see within either of these case numbers and the matter master any indication that there is the existence of these other case numbers for the same process. So would the Public Service Commission agree to providing some kind of process to notify all parties, post in the matter master, and in every other way possible, so that stakeholders can know that there are other aspects of the proceedings within other case numbers? So another issue that should be addressed is the fact there is no contract with New York City and Bethlehem. And for some reason, this proceeding has disregarded its importance and wants to use a precedent that applies to a very different context, Transco, and has lumped in both the municipal consent of the town of Bethlehem and the two revocable consents from New York City as being on measure with what is this Transco precedent. I hardly think that New York City, which is a large part of the purpose of this project, which is to transport electrons from Quebec to Queens and New York City, is just one of these municipalities, as disparaged in the text, as insignificant. So please, again, this is a misleading aspect of this request for this order that should be denied by the Public Service Commission. And closing, hydropower built in Canada on First Nations lands with the dams and the reservoirs and the flooding and the human rights aspects of this production are a form of genocide. We cannot be complicit in New York with the procurements of this power produced in these lands. We should be relying on New York State produced electricity, renewable energy, energy efficiency, and we should not be subsidizing a state-owned monopoly owned by a government. They should not receive any subsidies. And the state of New York should not be considering this type of power as eligible criteria in any way for the subsidies for the Tier 4 of the clean, so-called clean power. The transmission corridor from Quebec to Queens also will require installation under the Hudson River, under Lake Champlain, and in land, well, buried in land, the terrestrial route, they call it. Clearly, the entry points and the exit in Rockland County are not clearly defined. And the impact onto the Hudson River, what would be the trenching, its installation, the suspension of nucleotides, PCPs, the sediment will be contaminating water supply. And the long-term plan is to abandon these cables under the Hudson River This is not a legacy. We must protect the Hudson River. We must protect the people of New York from this type of Blackstone equity investment seeking a market share into New York City. We must protect rivers everywhere, including in Canada. And hopefully the Public Service Commission will come to its senses and deny this request and require additional environmental impact statement review and not continue to promote this destructive project. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. All right, Sangeeta, we're going to go back to Ms. Dressler, see if she has resolved her audio issues.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So once again, thank you for this opportunity. And I'm just going to jump right in. Some of it might be a tiny bit repetitive, but not much. But starting off, the PSC must deny this request for the certificate of public convenience and necessity. By the way, I live in Rockland County, New York. The community I live in Rockland County, New York, has been forced into supplying letters of support for this project. Oh boy, hold on. Forced into some. Sorry, it's the mailman. Our county officials have been forced into supplying letters of support for this project by Transmission Developers Inc., Hydro-Quebec, and Blackstone for CHPE, and from this point on, I will just say CHPE. So I'm sure that Rockland County officials and our county executive were notified by CHPE of where to put in their letters with this new docket number, but the public hasn't been informed. 2, regarding the certificate of public convenience and necessity, how is it possible that CHPE can request the granting of the certificate when they do not have permissions and agreements with all municipalities? This is a condition of the certificate. Furthermore, 2 counties are not in agreement. Dutchess County is opposed, and Ulster County's legislature wants to have the application by TDI for Industrial Development Agency's monies rescinded. IDA money is taxpayer money. As CHPE et al. Is a merchant transmission line project, they should not be receiving public monies. If the PSC grants this request for certificate, I do believe that there may be legal ramifications for the PSC. And if the certificate is granted, it calls into questions the workings of the PSC. 3, regarding this new docket number 21-E-0425. I do believe that the PSC, NYSERDA, and Governor Hochul are engaging in obfuscation. The public cannot possibly keep up with and know about your segmentation of this project. There was a new docket under the Clean Energy Standard of 15E-0302 for comments to the PSC for the February 7th hearing, with no reference to the original docket 10-T-0139. And now, only 1 week after that hearing, a new docket 21E-0425 for this hearing. How many more new dockets are you going to create to confuse the public, to cut down on public participation, so that this project, much beloved by former Governor Cuomo and now Governor Hochul, both with deep ties to Blackstone, goes through? The PSC has a duty to inform stakeholders of all new directions, including to connected dockets. You must reference other dockets. 4, I do not believe the CHPE project, financed by Blackstone, is financially capable. TDI has been requesting IDA money from every county that has this fund. TDI states on their applications that they cannot, and this is in quotes, they must have this money, otherwise they cannot complete this project, end quote. If, however, they can complete without IDA money, then they have intentionally lied and misled the public and communities, which would be grounds for denying any monies from these funds and which is considered fraudulent activity and would be negating of approvals. When will the PSC look into the fraudulent filings and claims? 5, CHPE is not ready to commence as they have not created a traffic safety and maintenance plan for the record. They have no idea of what they may encounter during construction. and they have not informed the public of any details, and neither has the PSC, which has never responded to any of my comments. Why is the PSC accommodating Blackstone rather than the interests of New Yorkers? Another reason why the PSC must not grant the certificate of public convenience and necessity for the construction, ownership, and operation of this project is because we will be subsidizing a merchant line that wants to be a franchise that will garner a New York City market share guaranteed by the state of New York, with NYSERDA procuring RECs, subsidizing Blackstone and Hydro-Quebec. 6, the short lead time of hearings, scheduling only one hearing today from 1 to 3, the middle of most working people's workdays, is not appropriate. And the hearing of February 7th was a disaster because there was a disaster, an ice storm which hit upstate New York, including Ulster County, many of whom the people did not have access to be able to put in comments. The February 7th hearing needs a do-over with extended comment period. As a matter of fact, because this project is so big and is now seemingly being illegally segmented, comment period should have no cutoff dates. All dockets should be left fully open for comment, and the PSC must reference all docket numbers, as all of these cases are all connected. 7, in closing, I would like to say again that the PSC must deny this request for the certificate of public convenience and necessity. And as Ms. Wilson just stated, we are also most concerned about the devastation to the Hudson River, Lake Champlain, the human rights violations in Canada, where people are suffering. Their lands have been stolen, flooded, they've been violated. Somehow this is all being swept under the carpet for a project that is going to make a lot of money for a Canadian company. And furthermore, I'm also very well aware that there are going to be fees that ratepayers are going to be paying, which is going to be making more money for Blackstone and Hydro-Quebec. I do believe that this project must be denied, and certainly the certificate must be denied. There's no way that they are ready to move forward, and there's no way that we want them to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dressler. Our next speaker is Jocelyn De Crescenzo. Ms. De Crescenzo, if you're calling in, please press *3. Will enable us to identify you and unmute your line. Sangeeta, do you see Ms. De Crescenzo?
No, Your Honor. Jocelyn, if you had called in for this hearing, please press *3 on your phone so I can locate you.
Okay, welcome back to De Crescenzo. Our next speaker is Michael Kohut, also a phone-in user, I believe. Mr. Kohut, if you're calling in, please press *3 so we can unmute your line.
Your line
Hi,
has
this is
been
Mike Kohut.
unmuted.
Yes, this is Mike Kohut.
We can hear you.
So yes, I wanted to speak on this application, and I want to state that, first of all, I am the mayor of the village of Haverstraw, which is in Rockland County, and I will be part of the proposed landline route for the project. It jumps out of the river in Stony Point and goes down through the Haverstraws and into Clarkstown and then goes back into the river. And I wanted to advise you that we have been in constant contact with the folks for this project, for the CHPE folks, over the years. They've been to numerous meetings and hearings that we've had. They've come to speak with the village boards and town boards about the proposals and asked for our input along the way as to what would make it an easier project as it navigates through down Route 9W. And it's been a very transparent process for us, for them, and we think that they've listened to us and taken our concerns and continue to take our concerns into consideration. There's going to be a lot of benefits provided both to the municipalities through which this line is going, including continuing tax payments, which will be a tax benefit with no downside for us, meaning that we never had to provide police services or ambulance services or any sort of other services for a line that's going to be underground. They plan on limiting disruption on 9W and repaving 9W completely from curb to curb, so that in the end product will be quite nice. And we have all the municipalities within Rockland have passed consent resolutions authorizing CHPE to use municipal property for this project, and we think that this petition should be approved and that the process continue so that ultimately we have some clean power going down through the area. So those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I see that Ms. De Crescenzo has joined. Sangeeta, she's an electronic user.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We just unmuted you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Yes, I live in Rockland County, New York as well, actually with my twin sister, Jacqueline Dressler. And, it's so interesting that people are calling in to say they're in approval of this project, but they're not talking about the certificate. They're just talking about the benefits they're going to get to their communities. And quite honestly, in Rockland County, the benefits that they're going to get for the Rockland County communities are really not benefits. And the fact of the matter is that they've all had to sign letters of support for any little change that this project requests. And they're identical letters that are usually sent in because TDI writes them for the municipalities. So that said, I do believe that this project, that the certificate of public convenience and necessity needs to be denied. Furthermore, I'd like to say that it's very confusing, really, what is public convenience and necessity? Because given that we're going to be having other forms of energy that aren't nearly so destructive to the environment and to communities, including communities in Canada, there's no necessity for this. There are other projects that are going to be maneuvering energy that are not going to be harming and that really are for public convenience. So the wording of this in itself is ridiculous, that we are fighting over a certificate of public convenience and necessity when there's no need for this. There's just no need for this. The fact that there are now 3 case numbers, I have a brain injury. And for someone like myself, this is the most confusing situation I've ever been in to comment for hearings. It is beyond belief for me to try to figure out what one I'm commenting on and when and where do I find the information. Some of us were people who want to participate, but you make this so difficult. Why are there 3 different case numbers for this? It's all CHPE. It's all 10-T-0139. That's what it is. I reiterate what my sister has said. I reiterate what A. Wilson has said, what Lisa Harrison has said. I am 100% against this, and I request that you deny this request for the certificate of public convenience and necessity. There are many more things I'd like to say, but I just didn't have the time to write them all down. My injury sometimes gets a little bit in the way, but I am very much opposed to this going forward because this company, CHPE et al., is not ready to move forward. And if you give the certificate, it's like they've gotten a waiver to just go forward, even though they have not filled the requirements for this certificate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Patrick D.
Good afternoon. My name is Patrick D. I'm the superintendent of schools for the Whitehall Central School District, which is in the northernmost portion of Washington County. At the risk of repeating what's already been stated, I feel that it's important to share that CHPE has been transparent and exceptionally open in regard to the planning and impact to our region. CHPE has participated in good faith and has participated in numerous regional meetings as well as local meetings and shared all pertinent information with our community for us to be able to support the ability for the project to move forward. The financial impact on the Whitehall Central School District and its stakeholders and community through a pilot will help support our school district now and for decades into the future. The Whitehall Central School District Board of Education does wholeheartedly support and appreciate the partnership with CHPE, and we do support the project moving forward. I thank you for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you very much. The next registered speaker is Alexander Bodensik. Forgive me again if I mispronounce your name. We don't see on the list. If you're a phone-in user, please press *3. Alexander Bodensik. All right, we'll come back to Mr. Bodensik. The next speaker on the list is Senator Gilbert. If you're a phone-in user, please press *3 and we can unmute your line. Sabater, there we go. I'm sorry, it's Gilbert Sabater. I apologize for that. You've been unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Gilbert Sabater. I live in New York City, and I have been aware how not transparent CHPE has been. All of the information we tried to get the mayor's office in New York City, we were not successful. What we tried to find out from the ex-governor, Mr. Cuomo, we were not successful. And then we find out that they're using different numbers for the same project. And then we find out that they're going to dredge the Hudson and they're going to upset all of the sediment in the Hudson River and upset the whole ecology of the river. We've tried so hard to clean that river. I am old enough that I remember we used to dump from the General Electric plants into the river. We finally stopped that, and now we're beginning to clean it, and we're going to muck it up again. For what reason, I have no idea. They don't have the okay from New York City. They don't have the okay from Bethlehem. Two of the counties have voted against it along the Hudson River. They're going to follow the water for the 7 towns on the Hudson that derive their drinking water out of the Hudson. And to me, is nothing more than somebody with a lot of money buying people off by offering they're going to give this to this, they're going to give that, they're going to help the schools, they're going to help this one, the other one, without realizing that all the damage that they're going to do. And what's really upsetting is the fact that we do not need that power because we can develop our own in New York State. Why are we going to give money to Canada when we can give the money to our own state and develop our own industry upstate? Why are we using our hard-earned dollars to help Canada? And we need help upstate to create more jobs. Why do we have to do that? Thank you very much. And I'm sorry it took so long.
Thank you, Mr. Sabater. And I apologize again for mispronouncing your name.
No problem.
Our next speaker is Daniel Ortega.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My name is Daniel Ortega. I am with the Operating Engineers Local 825. We represent over 1,200 members in the Hudson Valley, and we have been in support of this project from the very beginning. CHPE is probably the only renewable energy project that has been proposed in this region that has actually reach out to and is working with organized labor to make sure that our members are the ones doing the work, whether it's the operators, the electricians, the laborers, or any of the other building trades in the regions. We are the only ones that have been reached out. They are the only ones that have reached out to us to make sure that our members are hard at work, making sure that this project gets done right and on time. Additionally, I'm very concerned that there is a lot of people who are trying to, who are allowing perfection to get in the way of progress. I go to many of these meetings to talk about different projects, about natural gas and about solar panels and about hydroelectric and many other projects that we're involved in related to energy in upstate New York. And it is concerning that here we have a project that is actually going to be beneficial for every single community along the way, and we're still putting impediments to move it forward. Our members are interested in doing this type of work, and our members want to make sure that it's being done right. And we're asking this board to make sure that it's moving forward and it's moving forward right. Additionally, we have seen many other projects that are not being done by union members and are hurting our communities. This project is going to be very good, not just only for our members because they work in this project, but it's going to be very good for them because they live in the communities are going to benefit from the project. One more thing before my time is up. CHPE, it's an organization. This is a project that has been making sure that every single aspect of different communities are involved and have an input and participating in different projects. They have reached out to our organization from day one to make sure that our members are aware of the things that are happening and how they are going to be impacted, both at the local level and also at the jobs level. Once again, we would like the Public Service Commission to continue moving this project forward because we would like to see our members starting doing some of this work this upcoming summer. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mr. Al Maroney.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Maroney, we can hear you.
Oh, you can? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address the commission. I appreciate it. My name is Al Maroney, and I am representing Supervisor George Holman, who is the supervisor of the town of Clarkstown. I am his chief of staff. I just wanted to give you my perspective as a New Yorker who's lived here in this town for 57 years. And I just want to point out as well that the town of Clarkstown has approximately 88,000 residents. CHPE representatives have been communicating with the town of Clarkstown for many years. They have been, in my opinion, good faith partners. They have been attending meetings, IDA meetings, and have always provided answers when requested. They have been extremely transparent and respectful of the town of Clarkstown processes. I would also like to say that I think that our community in Clarkstown, we completely understand the CHPE project and the many benefits it will provide to New York State and our community. These benefits will come in the form of tax payments, which will likely come for decades. And most important, it will provide jobs and cleaner air for all of our New Yorkers. Our town is one of 33 others that have passed municipal consent resolutions authorizing installation of CHPE within the municipal property, almost exclusively on the roads. So therefore, we strongly encourage you to approve the petition and move forward with this project. I don't want to take up much more time. I do want to refute one thing that was mentioned earlier, and I can tell you that during my tenure here, I am not aware of any public officials ever being forced to send letters regarding this project. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak. That is the end of my comments.
Thank you very much. Next registered speaker is Lee Gao. Mr. Gao, if you're a call-in user, please press *3. We can identify you and unmute your line. It's call-in user 8 saying it. There you go. Okay, you've been unmuted.
And can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Sorry about that, Ms. Gao.
Hi, it's Lee Goff. Thank you. So I'm calling from the town of Esopus, and I'm also a new board member of the environmental board in the town. And although I just want to make it clear that I'm speaking for myself, and I'm speaking as an ordinary citizen. And I want to say that when I became aware of CHPE, as a fairly new resident of the town, I quickly wanted to learn more, and it was really difficult to access the information on the Public Service Commission announcement. And I just want to say that that's wrong, because for a Public Service Commission to live up to its name, it has to make really clear and really in plain English that there's a place to go for information for the members of the public to be informed in a holistic and rigorous way about such a project. And that just hasn't existed yet. And then when the project got divided into 3 different case numbers, I wondered, had I commented on something already that I might have missed and didn't know that whether I was commenting on the right part of this case. It shouldn't be that way. It should all be one case, and everybody should be allowed to look at all the comments going past. And I feel that the different elements of the case seems to be palimpsested over each other, erasing and eliding the questions and very valid concerns that many people had about this project. And I just want to say that right off the bat. I want the Public Service Commission also to live up to its name and deny this petition of certificate, because not only is it not publicly convenient, as I just said, in process or in actuality, but it is not a necessity either. Hydropower, which is the source of the CHPE, is not clean, and it's not renewable either. And for all those people who have called in, actually they should be ashamed representing schools and towns. I'm a mother, and I can say that it is not in the best interest of our future generations and our children to pollute our water with methyl mercury that will be stirred up by trenching the spine of the Hudson. Dams manifestly raise the temperature of the water. I remember the early days of the pandemic, walking the shores of the Hudson and seeing dead menhaden. This is already a thick river, and hundreds of years of industrial and agricultural toxins will be stirred up in this project. So it is in no way clean, and it is also something that is not renewable. If it's not clean, it's also not renewable, and it's really a shame that there are other better alternatives on the table, and New York has not considered them, because we're favoring the subsidizing of private equity profiteers in the energy market. That boggles my mind. So there's those things, and I just want to say that it doesn't meet any of the criteria there for clean or renewable energy. And I want to thank you for your time and hope that the Public Service Commission will make these type public hearings available to every resident. Where are the letters sent to residents of towns like mine that gather their water, that drink the Hudson River water, that bathe with the Hudson River, that cook in the Hudson River? In a sense, we are part of the river, and we cannot look to it as something to extract for the economic benefit of some of us, some small private profiteers. And for anybody who wants to brag about how many tax benefits their town or their school will get from this, I should say, shame on you. This is our children's futures should not be for sale. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, I apologize for mangling your name. Sorry about that. Our next registered speaker is Lucian Wabananek.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Well, I want to take this time to say thank you to everyone and giving us the opportunity to speak in this issue. First of all, I wanted to say that I'm an Anishinaabe and Algonquin. Sometimes that's what they call our nation, our people. And from the Quebec region in Canada. It's about 5 hours north of Montreal. That's where my community is. And I wanted to say that it's confusing because we're not very familiar of the proceedings and everything else that comes with that. It's confusing to us because we don't have much information coming from Hydro-Quebec in this project. Just to remind people, it's not for me to say, is it right or is it wrong? But what I can say is that, just to remind you that water for us is life because it gives life. All the fishes and all the mammals and all the animals that live in the waters, but also near the shores. So water to us is life. We drink it and we eat the fishes that comes from those waters. And those waters, to many of them, they're within dams. Some of them are small, some of them are bigger, but this is something that people need to know in New York. And the authorities need to understand what are the impacts that we live every day. I mean, every day. Right now, it's still ice on the waters. It's dangerous at sometimes simply because, we don't know what's, if the ice is touching the water. So that's winter time. And the springtime, the water goes really high. And when the dams are open, it goes, the water of the level of the waters are going low. But in the springtime, the fishes are spawning also. So that has a direct impact on the many fishes that live in those waters and those dams and the rivers also. So it has a tremendous impact on our daily lives. This is something that needs to be said. Hydro-Quebec is not transparent. We understand that people need clean energy, but, to the detriment of our people, of our nation. I represent, 5 communities when I'm speaking to you. It's about 8,000 people. 8,000 people. Some of them don't live in those near the waters, but at least half of them live beside those waters, beside or near those dams. So we have impacts. Our people are, affected by this. Fishes are, have some effect because of the mercury that fish have in their bodies, and still our people eat those fishes. And, we consider ourselves, the forgotten ones, the one that people don't talk about, because Quebec government, Canada, or Hydro-Quebec are still very, or trying to ignore our peoples and our rights as human beings. So it's been for so many years and decades that it's hard to explain, because you have to live it, you have to see it to understand those impacts. People are in New York need to come and see what's really happening on the land, because while we're talking, some of our communities need to go to the lakes, make a hole on the ice, and get their water there. That's the reality. And luckily, we have some of our communities that have hydroelectricity now and running water, but there's still so many things to work and so many issues that we need to deal with. And this project that people are talking in New York, and it's only one of them, but we need to say to Hydro-Quebec and Quebec government that they need to respect the rights of our people, of our nation. This is something that people don't talk about, but benefits go to the US, but it doesn't benefit us as a people here in Canada and Quebec. So this needs to be balanced. I believe that Hydro-Quebec should be really obligated to talk to us. The proponents needs to talk to our representative here. So this is something that needs to be really respected, considered, and applied to this project also, because the impacts, you need to know where that energy comes from. It doesn't come from the line. It comes from the dams, and this is where we are, near the dams, and where our territory are unceded, and this need to be understood. So I didn't want to take too much time, but we really want, people, ordinary people, authorities, to respect their own legislation if they have legislation in regards to respect of First Nations people's rights. And here in Canada, we have this constitution in Canada that's supposed to recognize our rights. But, when it's time to apply and recognize and how do we should do this, it becomes really difficult. So we need to look at this. And I think you have people from New York and the authorities have that power to obligate, stakeholders, proponents, to really, look at this seriously and find solution with us, not behind our backs, not with only Hydro-Quebec. We need to be part of the discussions. We need to be there. We are here. Please don't ignore our people. Please don't ignore our rights. This is what I have to say. Thank you very much, everyone. Be rich.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stephen Smith.
Well,
yep, we can hear you.
Yes, I don't have any comments at this time, but thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
All right, no, thank you. No problem, and thank you. Sorry. Next speaker is Catherine Skopik.
Hello?
Yes, you've been
Can you hear
unmuted.
me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to voice my concern about the atrocities of the Champlain Hudson Power Express project. My name is Catherine Skopik. I'm chair of Sierra Club New York City Group, delegate to Sierra Club Atlantic Chapter, and a member of the Interfaith Moral Action on Climate. I would like to say that as nice as money is, money cannot buy or create clean air, clean water, or a livable planet, which we all need. And most of my comments are based on science and not myth. The myth that hydroelectric power is clean is just that, a myth. The science shows us that the reservoirs created by these mega dams create tremendous amounts of methane and carbon dioxide. There is a saying, think globally, act locally. For those of you who are aware of or have ever read the IPCC report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, you would know that we are in code red, climate emergency. PBS just did a wonderful special on Arctic sinkholes. Methane is melting. The global warming is so bad that methane is rising up from the earth. If you speak to indigenous in Alaska, their homes are sinking because the permafrost is melting. This is a very, very serious matter. The global aspect of this is that CHPE would cause more methane, more CO2, to say nothing of harming our brothers and sisters in Quebec. Lucian, we are thinking of you and all of the others. So as wonderful as it is to hear from people of the 33 communities who have given their consent, yes, it's wonderful that the project developers, CHPE, are nice, they're cooperative, they're listening to you, they're asking for your input, they attend your meetings. Why wouldn't they? They want this project to go through. So in all due respect, I ask you, please, members of the 33 consenting municipalities, ask not how nice are the developers to you, but what will this project do to your river, to our environment, to our indigenous brothers and sisters in Quebec? What will it do to the economy of New York State? We have several, as others have mentioned, renewable energy projects produced in New York State that would bring their energy into Zone J, New York City. We don't need CHPE. It's kind of ironic that the name of this certificate that they're asking for has to do with necessity. It's not necessary. Blackstone would love, they've been trying to get into New York City for over a decade. This is their second try at this. There's reason why it didn't go through the first time. It's wrong. It's morally wrong. It's wrong from the aspect of racial justice, environmental justice, and economic justice. Why should New York State send its energy, jobs, and dollars to another country? Why? We're in a state of renewal. We have the CHPE, the Community Leader and Climate Protection Act, that gives us very, very strict mandates for renewable energy. This project would wipe that off the board. It is illegal from the standpoint of the New York State law. So this is a big mystery to me. Why would the PSC consider this when it's against New York State law? And I hope maybe somebody can explain this to me, because it absolutely does not make sense. Okay, those are my impromptu remarks. My written remarks are, we need more hearings on this CHPE project as it impacts millions of people, millions of acres of land and marine environment, and millions of dollars of the New York State economy. We cannot allow this project to be realized. And this company, Blackstone, CHPE LLC, CHPE Properties, Inc., appears to be doing everything it can to push this through, such as segmenting the project, as so many people have mentioned, into 3 different case numbers, and changing the details of the contract. Not only the details of the contract, but the details of the EIS, the Environmental Impact Statement. We need more hearings. This cannot be let go through in this lack of transparency that several people have referenced. Although the developers received a conditional certificate of environmental compatibility and public need, they now need a certificate of public convenience and necessity. And it's not necessary, as I have said. We have New York State renewable energy projects up and running, and many in the background ready to go to come into Zone J in New York City. So these other projects that are ready to go from New York State have no racial injustice to the indigenous or environmental harm to the Hudson River, or would they cause us to export our energy, jobs, and dollars to another country? Please, please reject the CHPE project. Prevent the racial, environmental, and economic injustice it would cause. Protect the water of the Hudson River for the Hudson seven communities, that's thousands of people who depend upon the Hudson for their drinking water. Once these PCBs and other toxics are stirred up because of the jet plowing of the riverbed, you cannot remove those PCBs. Their water would no longer be drinkable. Where would they get their water from? There's no other source that they could get their water from. So we have to think not only of our Indigenous brothers and sisters in Quebec, but our people of the Hudson Seven, the 7 communities along the Hudson who get their drinking water from the Hudson. This project would cause more methane and CO2, thus worsening the climate crisis and our planet. As a citizen, along with community colleagues, many of whom you have heard from today, it is our job, my job, to protect the river, its people, its life, and the planet. And if you aren't quite too sure if this methane CO2 question is myth or reality, I'd refer you to an article, Documentation of the Carbon Footprint of Hydro-Quebec, their hydropower, by Bradford H. Hager, the Cecil and Ida Green Professor of Earth Sciences, Department of Earth, Atmosphere and Planetary Sciences at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So don't just take my word for it that the reservoirs cause methane and CO2. Look at the science. This is based on science, not myth. And who is spreading the myths? The people who want this project to go through. So please pay attention to the science. It is also our job to look out for our Lucien and our other Indigenous sisters and brothers in Quebec, Canada, whose lands these mega dams to supply the electricity are being built. Their means of survival are being destroyed by the mega dams. They can't hunt as they used to. Lucien mentioned the winter. Some of the times, because of the dams, the winter isn't as thick as it normally would be. So some of the nation's people cannot cross the rivers to get to their winter hunting grounds because of the dams. The boreal forests that are so important to the whole planet, not just us here. And these forests absorb tons and tons of CO2. Yet these forests are being destroyed, I'm sorry, by the mega dams. And when they're submerged in water, they also create, as someone else has mentioned, they create what's called methylmercury, which is a poison. And as I believe Lucien mentioned, once that poison is in the water, the fish are living there, and people eat the fish, and it has been referred to as slow genocide. So we have responsibilities to each other. We have responsibilities to our local environment and neighboring environments. We have responsibilities to the planet. We have responsibilities to our children and our grandchildren. And I agree with, who was it, Lisa Gu, who said she's surprised at some of these communities who are going along with this just to get money, tax money. They're looking at that, and money cannot buy clean air. We are literally on the verge of causing tipping points on our planet from which there is no return. This isn't just a project for today. This is something that could impact the whole planet. This is not hyperbole. This is fact. This is scientific fact. Okay, so I think that's about it. I'm sorry I get a little emotional about these things because it's so important. We have other projects, renewable energy projects. Do not approve CHPE. Thank you. Peace, Catherine Skopik.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Phil Herner. Mr. Herner, if you've called in, please press star 3. There it is. There he is. Calling user 5 saying either. Mr. Herner, you've been unmuted.
Okay, thank you very much, and it's quite humbling to follow such eloquent speakers on this subject. Good afternoon. My name is Phil Erner. I live in Kingston, New York. I grew up in Albany County, New York. I've worked in university physics and farming. I'm now a legislator in Ulster County, elected for the first time this term. And like Lee Guff mentioned earlier, I do only speak for myself, although I will say that our legislature Energy, Environment, Sustainability Committee is considering a resolution to send to our county's Industrial Development Agency to support their inclination to deny any payment in lieu of taxes to this project. I also want to support neighbors from the Hudson 7, 2 towns here in Ulster County, and 5 across the river, as well as Riverkeeper, which came and spoke to our committee about why they oppose this project. And locally, as far as I'm concerned, the opposition is quite simple. The developers have demonstrated no benefit at all to the community except for asking for a reduction in the anticipated tax levy of approximately $90 million over the course of the pilot they're asking for, down to in the $20 million. No jobs, no infrastructure. So there's no local benefit. That much is clear. I want to speak to the other reasons why this project should be prevented entirely, many of which have already been said, so I'll try and not repeat. I've followed this project for a decade at this point. The Capital District Solidarity Committee covers it regularly in their newsletter. This project, unfortunately, to me, represents another example of coming into communities which have suffered environmental, ecological, and economic devastation time and time again by oppressive systems that we have had in these lands for several centuries. And so we're forced to make what seems like a stark choice. Take whatever money we can get or say no and remain impoverished, disfranchised, unheard of, uncared for, and unloved. I used to live in the town of Dover, New York, where after our state banned hydrofracking for gas, a frack gas power plant was allowed to come up online, which took gas coming from other states and provinces and burned it in this power plant, also against the Climate Leadership Community Protection Act. It turned on in the middle of a respiratory pandemic, built near a school, the lowest income town in the county. So this town actually made a deal with the devil, what they thought was to get some funds because of the position they were in. But in fact, when they saw the power plant going up, many folks who had supported or not been sure before recognized what had happened. And unfortunately, it wasn't just up to the town, it was also up to the state. So I want to spend a minute commenting on what I see as the state's role here. The state, let's talk about the Public Service Commission for a moment. The Public Service Commission if it wanted to do right by the people, it should create a rule that would give the public, not investors, not profiteers, but the public, control over our own utilities, as well as the workers, those who are responsible for delivering those utility services, actually building. They should get to determine and have the sovereignty over this process. The Public Service Commission has a history of making decisions in favor of the investors and against the people. I was in the room when Commissioner Edwards was the lone commissioner to vote against considerations asked for by National Grid, when nearly 100 folks were in the room to speak out against them several years ago. Last year, here in Ulster County, I was part of a group called Ulster Economic Demands, which sent postcards concerning Central Hudson's desire to raise rates in the middle of a pandemic, when they'd been shutting off residents and businesses illegally as well, and when debts were mounting. People had no idea how or when or if they'd ever be able to pay them back. And as folks have referenced here, there were 3 case numbers, so the divide and conquer strategy, and the Public Service Commission ceded to the request by Central Hudson to raise those rates. Now, many on this call probably know that Ulster County was the center of the ice storm 2 weekends ago, in which, in the aftermath, as the workers were responding to try and restore power, which took several days in many of our neighborhoods here in Kingston, word on the street was, why didn't they cut back the trees to keep them from falling on the lines? Why didn't they bury the lines? Well, because they didn't have to. And presumably it was cheaper for them to bring in all these emergency personnel after disaster happened and leave people freezing cold in February. So the Public Service Commission granted concessions to the company who's responsible to their shareholders in that case, and not to the best interests of keeping folks warm in the winter here. So I say this because the Public Service Commission now has an opportunity to make a different decision. And those who've spoken before me have detailed all the good reasons to decide to stop this project and to head somewhere different. And I hope that they will do so.
Thank you, Mr.
I don't have much. You're welcome.
If you wouldn't mind, please pressing *3 again. That'll help us avoid confusion down the line. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Harrison Watkins. Mr. Watkins, if you're a call-in user, please press *3. We can identify you and unmute your line. Again, Harrison Watkins, if you've called in, please press *3. We can identify you and unmute your line. Sangeeta, I don't see it, do you?
No, Your Honor, no rate 10.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Mr. Richard Webster. Mr. Webster, if you've called in, please press *3. We can identify you and unmute your line. Number 7, Sangeeta. Mr. Webster, you've been unmuted.
Hello, thank you. This is Richard Webster from Riverkeeper. I just want to make some brief remarks today. Thank you for the opportunity to make some remarks.
No problem. Thank you.
First of all, on the subject of greenhouse gases, the petition does allege that there'll be a reduction in greenhouse gases as a result of this project. That's far from certain for many reasons which are quite complex and I'm going to here. But I think the key point is that there are alternatives to this project which were bid in the Tier 4 proceeding, the Tier 4 REC proceeding, which use solar and wind energy within New York State to generate power, and those projects will clearly be more beneficial in terms of reduction of greenhouse gases. And as we've heard movingly from various speakers, dams have tremendous impact on rivers, on wildlife, and on people. And the dams where this power comes from in Canada, most were built without the consent of the First Nations, and the First Nations continue to be advocating for reform and improvements to these dams. In fact, another dam is due to come online fairly soon, Romaine 4. That is predicted to have the worst methyl mercury impacts of any dam so far. And so this health threat to mercury from mercury is absolutely a real threat. And that Romaine 4 dam was built for export. It is not needed to supply domestic power in Quebec. It was purely built on a speculative basis by Hydro-Quebec to supply export markets like New York. And so the question really is, do we want to reward speculative behavior that caused damage to Indigenous people by premium for this electricity? Now, on a more local basis, as we've also heard, there are many causes for concern. As we've heard, the process to site the cable will be, or to bury the cable, will be jet plowing. That will stir up considerable amounts of contaminated sediments. That has the possibility of contaminating drinking water supplies along the Hudson. 7 towns rely on the Hudson for drinking water supplies. Those 7 towns have expressed their concern about this impact. We also know that there is a potential for affecting the behavior of fish that will be generated by the cable. In short, and then finally, the cable will only be buried to 7 feet, and the marine industry has expressed its concern that vessels dropping anchor in emergency could snag the cable and break the cable. Finally, I want to express a legal concern. I'm the legal director of Riverkeeper after all. The CLCPA and the Public Service Law requires the electric system of New York to be zero emissions by 2040. As we've heard, these dams do emit, well, they're very variable, but the worst do emit greenhouse gases equivalent to a fossil fuel power plant. And so I think you should consider carefully whether it's appropriate to grant a certificate to an entity that will be emitting considerable amounts of greenhouse gases beyond 2040. As we know, the law is complicated. The definition is somewhat unclear, but I think it's very clear that even if an exception can be found to show that it doesn't violate the letter of the law, that this project would violate the spirit of the law. And so much better to choose an alternative which has the benefits of in-state jobs, better greenhouse gas reductions, and is clearly legal. And I should say, for those that are saying, well, this brings some tax funds to our town and so forth, there aren't that many ways to get to New York City. So most projects are going to need to route through a number of towns up and down the Hudson. And so, you know, people shouldn't treat this as the only game in town. This is one of many games in town. This just happened to be the first game in town, but it doesn't mean to say it's the best game in town. And in fact, I think that what's come out over the last 8 to 10 years has shown that this is probably the worst game in town. So please consider this request carefully, and I urge you not to make a hasty decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Webster. We had 2 registered speakers who weren't there the first time we called them. I'm going to go back to Mr. Alexander Bodinzik. Mr. Bodinzik, if you're a phone-in user, please press *3. We can try to identify you. I don't see any raised hands. How about Harrison Watkins? Again, no raised hands. All right, at this time, we've called upon all the people who have registered to speak in advance. So at this time, we'll open up the floor to anybody who did not register to speak but would like to provide a statement. If you're participating electronically and you would like to give a statement, please press the raise hand icon in the bottom right of your screen. If you're calling in and would like to give a statement, please press *3. Okay, last call for anyone who would like to provide a statement but didn't register to do so. If you're participating electronically, please press the raise hand icon in the bottom right of your screen. If you're calling in, please press *3, and we can unmute your line to allow you to give a statement. Sangeeta, I still don't see any hands. How about you?
No raised hand, Your Honor.
All right, well, in that case, we're going to close the hearing. I'd like to thank everyone who registered in advance to speak this afternoon. I'd also like to thank everyone else who participated. I would remind everyone listening that you can submit comments by the other means described earlier and in the notice of public statement hearing. We also have a slide. Joe, if you don't mind pulling that up one more time, thank you. The public statement hearing is now concluded. As indicated in the notice, we'll be holding a procedural conference shortly. First, we'll briefly go off the record to allow anyone who does not want to participate in the procedural conference to disconnect.
Your Honor, we have a raised hand.
Hello.
Hello, Ms. De Crescenzo. Do you want to add something to your comment?
Yes, I would. I thought this was only for people who hadn't had the chance to speak, but since there's a little bit more time, I would just like to say that I thought when we kind of managed to see this notice that it was supposed to be specific to this certificate. And I would have said lots and lots of other things if I'd known that I could have.
It is.
However,
it's supposed to be specific to the Section 68 petition.
Okay. So
we don't want to cut people off. You took the time to register. You made a statement. Right. If you want to add to it, please do so.
Yes, what I'd like to add is that the fact that so many people, actually, it's the fact that there are 19 people on this call, which should show the PSC that the notification process and also, you know, just the registering process is very complicated, especially now that there are 3 cases. And I just feel that you're not doing your job for really notifying the public, because there should be a lot more people, either pro or con, that would be calling in on this matter. This is probably one of the most important matters to do with this project. And I'm just feeling that the fact that there's only 19 people on the call speaks to the issue. That's all. It's on a weekday. Maybe you need to do some better planning so that there can be more people who are part of the public who might want to contribute to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, again, the public statement hearing has concluded. It's 2:38 right now. We're going to go off the record until 2:45. 2:45, we'll go back on the record for procedural conference. Thank you. Mr. McLean, we're off the record.
We are off the record.